The moment it aired, everything changed. It was supposed to be an ordinary episode of The Lion's Den, a cutthroat American business reality show filmed in Manhattan, where entrepreneurs pitched their ideas to 5 of the world's richest investors. Millions were watching live when 24-year-old tech prodigy Carter Royce stepped into the studio wearing a hoodie, his pitch deck clutched in his hands, and announced he had created a device that could digitally erase a person's identity from every known database in under 60 seconds. The crowd chuckled, the panel smirked, and then the lights flickered. "Imagine a world where no one can trace you," Carter said calmly. "Where you don't exist, digitally, financially, legally. That's the world my software creates. One keystroke, and you disappear." One of the panelists, billionaire media tycoon Vincent Blake, leaned forward. "You're talking about a product that could wipe out someone's existence." "Precisely," Carter replied. "And I have proof." The lights flickered again. Within seconds, the show cut to a commercial, abrupt, chaotic, but not before millions of viewers saw Vincent Blake's phone vibrate violently, his eyes widen, and his voice crack. "My bank accounts, they're gone." What the audience didn't see was what happened after the cameras cut. What the public didn't hear were Blake's chilling final words to his security team. "Find out who he is, and erase him permanently." Within 12 hours, Carter Royce had vanished. No social media, no phone pings, no credit history. His university records at MIT? Erased. Passport? Invalid. Apartment in Brooklyn? Vacant, spotless. Not even a fingerprint left behind. By the next morning, rumors exploded online. Some claimed it was a PR stunt. Others said Carter was a government agent testing tech on live television. But only one group took it seriously, an underground syndicate of ex-CIA contractors and tech vigilantes operating under the codename Black Dot. They'd seen this before. Black Dot's leader, a former NSA analyst turned rogue whistleblower named Evelyn Cross, immediately recognized the signature: real-time identity vaporization. But Carter's case was different. His system wasn't just deleting data. It was rewriting code across both public and dark web archives. It was something they hadn't seen before, a true digital black hole. And it had scared Vincent Blake. Evelyn's team traced Carter's signal back to a rented data server in Zurich, Switzerland, and found a series of encrypted messages. Most were indecipherable, but one stood out. A file labeled Blake_records_2013-2021, and a single phrase beneath it: "If I die, this goes public." That same night, Evelyn's apartment in Vancouver was broken into. Her laptop, phones, and 2 encrypted drives were stolen. Nothing else touched. When she reported it to police, the detective laughed. "You sure this isn't just a hacker war?" he asked. But Evelyn knew better. This wasn't just about data. This was about leverage. She had stumbled onto something darker than digital warfare. She had entered a kill zone designed by billionaires to stay billionaires, no matter the cost. 3 days later, she got a call from a burner phone she hadn't used in 6 years. The voice was calm, familiar, and robotic. "They're hunting me," Carter said. "Don't trust anyone. Not the media, not the feds, especially not Blake. He's done this before." Evelyn froze. "You're alive?" "I never left," Carter whispered. "But I need your help. I'm going to send you something. If I don't call in 72 hours, drop it." Click. The file came in encrypted layers. Evelyn cracked the first and uncovered documents linking Vincent Blake to a secret offshore project in the Cayman Islands called Project Lazarus. It was described as a continuity simulation initiative, supposedly designed to clone digital identities for billionaires in case of catastrophic global events. But buried in the technical documents was a darker component, something called DSRM protocol, Directive for Self-Regulating Murder. It wasn't about continuity. It was about execution. Project Lazarus used AI to predict threats to elite figures, activists, whistleblowers, even potential inventors like Carter, and automatically generate death orders disguised as random accidents, suicides, or disappearances. Evelyn realized what this meant. Blake hadn't panicked because his bank account vanished. He panicked because Carter's software had scraped the murder orders he'd signed. She reached out to a journalist friend in London, Charlie Renner, who agreed to meet her the next day at a public park in Westminster. But when she arrived, she saw the park taped off, helicopters overhead, and officers crowding a crime scene. Charlie was dead, stabbed once in the neck. Clean, professional. No witnesses. No CCTV. Just like it was meant to be. Evelyn ran. That night, she got another call from a different number. Tick-tock, a voice whispered. Your name's next on the list. Her heart pounded. She turned off all devices, burned every backup drive, and boarded a midnight train from London to Edinburgh. Somewhere along that train ride, she received a message from an untraceable signal. If you want the truth, come to Oslo. 2 a.m. Free a chocolate factory. Don't be late. What she didn't know was that Vincent Blake had already landed in Norway, and his private security team had orders not to capture Carter Royce alive. Because Carter hadn't just copied the murder files. He'd found the names of the next targets. And Evelyn's was the very first. Evelyn's heart raced as she stared at the message on her screen. The words felt like a death sentence. Oslo, 2 a.m. Free a chocolate factory. It sounded like a trap, but she had no choice. She needed answers, and Carter Royce was the key. The train to Edinburgh couldn't be fast enough, and the 2 hours she spent there felt like an eternity. Her mind kept racing through every possibility. Was Carter still alive? Had he set this up as a way to lure her into the open? And why Oslo? The answers felt just out of reach, like a puzzle with too many missing pieces. When the train finally pulled into the station, Evelyn barely took a breath before sprinting to her car. The drive to Oslo was going to take hours, but she had no time to waste. As the miles passed, the gnawing fear in her stomach only grew. Every car that passed seemed to hold a threat. Every shadow by the side of the road was a potential ambush. By the time she reached Oslo, it was well past midnight, and the streets were eerily empty. The city, usually vibrant, felt like a ghost town. She found herself standing in front of the Fria chocolate factory, a towering, abandoned structure, its brick walls covered in ivy and graffiti. The clock on her phone read 1:55 a.m. She took a deep breath and checked her phone again. No new messages. The air was cold, biting at her skin, but it wasn't the chill that unsettled her. It was the feeling of being watched. She knew someone was out there, waiting. Suddenly, her phone vibrated. It was a new message from the same untraceable number. You're almost there. Enter through the north gate. Don't make a sound. Evelyn's pulse quickened as she looked around. There was no sign of life, but she knew better than to underestimate anyone involved in this game. Without another moment's hesitation, she made her way to the north gate, her steps muffled by the snow-covered ground. The gate creaked open with a slow, menacing sound, and she slipped through, her back pressed against the cold brick of the factory's outer wall. The interior was dark, save for a few dim lights flickering in the distance. She had to move quickly, but carefully. Every corner could be hiding an enemy. The factory, once a hub of chocolate production, now felt like a desolate tomb. The smell of dust and rust filled the air, and the sound of her footsteps echoed in the silence. She knew she wasn't alone. There were shadows watching, just out of sight. Every instinct told her to turn back, but she couldn't. She had come too far. Her phone buzzed again, and she glanced at it. A new message. He's waiting for you. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. Who was he? And why was this all happening now? As she moved further into the factory, the darkness seemed to close in on her. It was as though the walls were pushing in, suffocating her. She could feel her breath quicken. Just ahead, a faint light flickered. She moved towards it, her body tense. As she got closer, she could see figures standing in the shadows. They were waiting for her, but the moment she stepped into the light, they disappeared. A voice echoed through the factory. It was low and chilling, like it was coming from every direction at once. I knew you'd come, Evelyn. She spun around, heart pounding. There, standing at the center of the dimly lit room, was Carter Royce. He looked different, older, haggard, as if he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot, but there was a calmness to him that sent a shiver down her spine. I didn't expect you to make it, he said, his voice steady. But I'm glad you did. Evelyn's mind raced. You've been here all along, haven't you? Carter nodded. I never left. They thought I was gone, but they were wrong. Vincent Blake was never the real threat. The real danger was always the system. He motioned for her to come closer. Evelyn hesitated. There was something off about this. She had seen too many people play games like this before. It didn't feel right, but she had come this far. There was no turning back. What's really going on, Carter? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Carter's expression hardened. It's not just about me. It's about everyone who stands in the way of their plans. Blake, the others, they've been manipulating everything. They've created a world where the rich and powerful can erase anyone who threatens them. And the worst part? They've built it into the very systems that run the world. Banks, governments, media, you name it. Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying they've been orchestrating murders all this time? Carter looked at her, his eyes burning with intensity. Not just murders. Disappearing. People who could expose them. Activists, journalists, even whistleblowers. They don't die. They vanish. No trace. No record. And nobody remembers them. But how? Evelyn's voice cracked with disbelief. How could they do that without anyone noticing? Because they control everything, Carter said, his voice low. I found the files. The ones that prove it. And that's why Blake wants me dead. I'm the one who can expose it all. Evelyn's mind raced. This wasn't just about Carter anymore. It wasn't even about Blake. This was something much larger, something that reached far beyond their understanding. Do you have the proof? She asked. Carter didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled a small, metallic drive from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. This is it, he said. Everything you need to take them down. But you have to be careful. They know we're here. At that moment, the air shifted. A sudden gust of wind blew through the factory, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallways. They weren't alone. Someone was coming. Fast. Get out, Carter said urgently. Take the drive and run. They're onto us. Evelyn didn't need to be told twice. She turned and ran, the drive clutched tightly in her hand. The factory, once a place of industry, now felt like a trap closing in around her. She had to escape, had to survive. But as she rounded the corner, she froze. There, standing in her path, was Vincent Blake himself. Did you really think you could get away with this? Blake's voice was cold, calculated. Evelyn's blood ran cold. She was cornered. Blake's smile was chilling. It's over, Evelyn. This is where it ends. The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in with every passing second. Evelyn's heart raced as she faced Vincent Blake, the man who had orchestrated countless lives to further his empire. Behind him, shadows of his men stood like silent sentinels, waiting for Blake's orders. Evelyn's grip tightened on the drive in her hand. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. But standing before Blake, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was outmatched. She had no backup. She couldn't trust Carter. And now, she was alone with one of the most dangerous men in the world. Blake stepped forward, his eyes fixed on her like a predator about to strike. You think you can stop this? You think you can take me down with that little device? His voice was mocking, as if the very idea was laughable. Evelyn didn't back down. She knew this was a game of nerves, and she couldn't afford to let him see any fear. It's over, Blake. Your empire is crumbling. People know the truth now, and there's no way you can stop it. Blake's smile widened, his teeth sharp. You're deluded, Evelyn. What you have there is just a small piece of a much bigger puzzle. Do you really think that this is the only copy? I've made sure that if something happens to me, the story will continue, and so will my control over everything. Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine. Blake was a man with no weaknesses. He had thought of everything. She had underestimated him in ways she couldn't even comprehend. But as Blake advanced, a thought struck her. The drive. Carter had given it to her for a reason. She wasn't going to let it go, not without a fight. And this wasn't the time to play by his rules. You don't control everything, Blake, she said, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. There's always a way to bring the truth to light. Blake's eyes narrowed. You think the world is going to listen to you? You think anyone will believe the lies you've fed them? He motioned to the men behind him, and they stepped forward, each of them carrying a weapon. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just a confrontation, this was a setup. But before Blake could give the order, a loud crash echoed through the factory. A group of men burst through the far door, guns drawn, their faces masked. They were not here to protect Blake, they were here to take him down. For a moment, Evelyn couldn't tell who was on whose side. Get down, one of the newcomers shouted. A firefight broke out in the dimly lit room, bullets flying in every direction. The chaos was overwhelming. Evelyn ducked behind a nearby pillar, adrenaline coursing through her veins. This was her chance. She could hear Blake yelling, ordering his men to return fire. But Evelyn wasn't focused on them. She knew she had to escape. She had the proof. She had to get it to the world before it was too late. With the confusion surrounding her, Evelyn sprinted for the nearest exit, the sounds of gunfire and shouting fading behind her. She didn't look back. All that mattered was getting out alive. As she ran through the factory, she spotted a back door and flung it open. The cold Oslo air hit her like a wave, but there was no time to savor the freedom. The factory was still under siege, and her escape was anything but guaranteed. Evelyn sprinted down the alley, her breath heavy, her legs burning. She didn't know where she was going. She just needed to get away from the factory, away from Blake's reach. But as she rounded a corner, she skidded to a stop. A black SUV was parked at the end of the alley, the engine running. The door opened, and Carter stepped out. His face was still drawn, but there was relief in his eyes. "Evelyn," he said, his voice breathless. "I knew you'd make it out. Come on, get in." Evelyn hesitated for a moment, but then realized this was her only option. She had to trust Carter, at least for now. She jumped into the car, and Carter slammed the door shut behind her. The vehicle sped off, weaving through the streets of Oslo as the sounds of the gunfight grew distant. "What now?" Evelyn asked, clutching the drive tightly in her hand. Carter glanced at her, his eyes steely with determination. "Now, we make sure the world sees the truth. Blake can't control everything, not anymore. With this, we expose him and everyone else involved." Evelyn nodded. "But we have to be careful. If they know we have this, they'll come for us." "Let them try," Carter said, his voice firm. "They'll have to go through me first." The tension in Evelyn's chest slowly began to ease. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to believe there might be a way out. But she knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As the car sped through the darkened streets, Evelyn's thoughts raced. The files on that drive could take down more than just Vincent Blake. They could bring down an entire network of power and corruption. But she had to make sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands. The next few hours would be crucial. But for now, Evelyn had won a small victory. She had escaped the trap,